This week on the GameCritics.com podcast, what's the deal with Killzone 2? Am I right, people? Plus, reviews we'd like to take back and the sexiest email segment ever. Let's get it on. It's the GameCritics.com podcast, and it starts right now. Hello and welcome to the GameCritics.com podcast, episode 13, the luckiest episode of them all. I want to tell you guys up front, I am completely spent physically and emotionally from the 1-2 punch of my twins' birthday party today and the Battlestar Galactica series finale last night. I am an empty shell. I am drained of all life. Should I pass out, can I count on you guys to finish the show without me?
Sure thing.
I appreciate it. And frankly, people probably won't even notice. So let me introduce you to my saviors and fellow game critics. Let's start with our fearless leader, Mr. Chi-Kong Liu.
Hey Tim, how's it going? So is that a thumbs up or thumbs down on the finale?
It was a 98% thumbs up.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it was emotionally satisfying. Do you guys watch the show, by the way?
I've actually never seen it, but I plan to catch up with it on DVD.
I refuse to watch a Battlestar Galactica where Cylons aren't giant silver robots with swords.
Oh, Mike, they are. You have to keep watching. You have to keep watching.
Okay.
All right.
That you might get me to check it out then.
Oh, you have to. Also joining us this week, it's Mr. Brad Gallaway.
Hey guys, how's it going? Speaking of TV watching, I just got up to date with Obama's appearance on Leno. I'm a couple days late to the party, but whatever. And I just wanted to say that I'm so thrilled. It just, I'm so happy all the way down to my core that we finally have a president who can speak and enunciate and express himself clearly. I mean, just the fact that he was able to get up there and make his points in a very clear, concise fashion. I think the country's back on the right track, you guys.
Except, what did he say? He had to retract something, didn't he?
Except for that little thing. Yeah. It was under his breath. It was whatever. I'm not even going to count that against him.
That makes it okay. As long as it was under his breath on national
Under his
TV,
breath is fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, also joining us this week, it's the horror geek himself, Mike Bracken. Hello, Mike.
Hey guys, glad to be here tonight. Check in with everybody. Recovering from a viewing of the French gore film Martyrs that everybody's been waiting for. Totally lives up to the hype.
Nice.
Really? Where can we see that?
It's coming out on DVD sometime next month. So this guy who directed it is a guy named Pascal Laugier. He will be directing the Hellraiser remake as well. So interesting movie. Plays with your expectations in a way most horror films don't, and it's pretty gory. So definite thumbs up from me.
If it's a thumbs up from the horror geek, it's a thumbs up for America, and really the world, I think. Thanks, Mike. This week on the show, Killzone 2. Our forums exploded over this one. Apparently, this is the greatest shooter ever and is simultaneously unspeakably awful. You guys have all played it. You'll get down to business. You'll tell me what I should think. Then we'll have a feature which highlights more than anything our humility. It's called Taking a Mulligan, and we're going to look back at some old reviews and reevaluate them after some time and perspective, all thanks to the miracle of podcasting. And we'll round it out with some listener mail, and that'll be our show this week. But first, as promised, Killzone 2. Killzone 2 is, and I don't think many people realize this, the sequel to Killzone. It's the 2004 PlayStation 2 shooter, which was developed by Guerrilla Games. And I'll be straight up with all of you guys. I haven't played this game. I have absolutely no interest in it. But for the purposes of this conversation, I will be the voice of our listeners. And they were very vocal about Killzone 2. And it's really the divisiveness of this game. It's just unbelievable to me. So I have a couple of quotes to start this off. We'll start with our very own Brandon Erickson, who actually wrote a blog post with his impressions of the game. And this is what Brandon had to say. He says, quote, "Throughout my playthrough of Killzone 2's single-player campaign, the resounding conclusion I kept reaching about the game was that it was missing one very important ingredient: personality. It just seems that with all the money and time Guerrilla spent on making Killzone 2 into a visual powerhouse, they forgot to spend any of that $20 million budget on hiring some decent writers and actors. It's a shame, because aside from its utter lack of charm, it's actually a fairly good game." Now, counterpoint to that, we had another message. This was from our user Scott, and Scott wrote, quote, "I think for me, this game has an amazing amount of personality. The personality lies in the thrill and excitement and immersion. Gears of War and Halo do not make me feel the same. This is what sets it apart. The graphics, the gritty nature, and voice acting all add to the stew of horror that is war. And Killzone 2 makes me feel it like nothing ever has." Has anything ever made you feel the stew of war before? I just love that phrase.
I felt the stew of horror before, but never the stew of war.
Yeah. So
What's in a stew of war anyway? I'd be curious as to the recipe.
Body parts.
I was gonna say, does Progresso sell that?
Yeah, it's instant stew of war.
It's delicious. So guys, here we have two guys talking about the same game with the complete opposite opinion. Set me straight. What am I supposed to think about Killzone 2?
Well, not much. Before I launch into my tirade that is sure to generate bags and bags of hate mail, I did want to put out a disclaimer really quick and say that we are going to be addressing the single-player portion, the single-player campaign. The multiplayer is kind of a different beast entirely, so we are not going to be discussing that for the purposes of this podcast. So go ahead and, get out your flame sticks now and start sending us letters about how we're so screwed up in the head for not bringing it up. We're open to that. But anyway, moving on, talking about the single player. I was completely not impressed with Killzone 2 at all. To be perfectly honest, the only thing the game gets right to me is the graphics. I mean, when you first turn it on, granted, it's very impressive. I mean, the graphics look pretty realistic. There's lots of effects going on. There's lots of little details you notice. Visually, it's a very impressive game. I absolutely give it that, and I think that it succeeds in that arena. Everywhere else, I felt like it really, really fell short. It left me very bored, disaffected, and uninterested, and for a number of reasons. There's so many reasons I don't even know really where to start. But to me, it's like it's such an old game design. It's just the levels, the pacing, the Pez dispenser enemies. It doesn't feel like an action-packed game to me. I mean, there's lots of things going on. It's loud. It's like absurdly loud. There's smoke. I mean, there's explosions. But I never felt like the play was really directed by me. I felt like I was being led by the nose from place to place, and things happened when I got there, but none of it was really significant. Kind of like one of the worst examples is just the scripting. It's so heavily scripted that I could never get past it. And I know that people are going to say, but every game's scripted. Okay, yeah, true. Okay, but it doesn't have to beat you over the head with it. I mean, one of my least favorite parts of the game was when you get trapped on a bridge and you need to advance to the other side of the bridge. You've got a friggin' tank on your side, like your squad mates are in a tank and they're shooting grenades and there's shells going off and things are exploding, and you need them to push forward so you can capture the bridge, and you know what? They don't. The tank stays parked exactly where it is until you, the grunt on the ground, move forward and capture that bridge yourself. And when you move up, 2 seconds later, the tank moves up right behind you. So in effect, the tank is taking cover behind you, the boot on the ground, which made no sense whatsoever to me at all. And, I mean, I tested it. I hid behind the tank because if I was in that situation in the middle of the stew of war, which is quite a salty stew, I must say, if I was behind that tank, I would be like, I'm hanging out here. No bullets are getting through this tank. I'm not going to get hit by anything. I'm going to wait till these guys roll up, and then I'll pick off the stragglers. And when I got behind that tank, they didn't move an inch. They would have been there all day if I hadn't moved up and taken the bridge. So, I mean, that to me is a really poor example of scripting. It didn't feel very real to me. It felt very, very artificial. And besides that, the levels are really boring. They're gray. There's lots of destroyed stuff. It's really confusing. You don't know where to go. The story's terrible. I couldn't ever remember what I was supposed to be doing besides shooting those guys, the Hellgast. There's no co-op in the main story campaign, which I thought was a huge missed opportunity. I mean, I don't see what's so exciting about this game besides the graphics, honestly. I mean, I played it. I was bored. I was not interested whatsoever. And, once the eye candy wore off in a few minutes, I couldn't wait to be done with it. Chi, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same camp with you and Brandon. Brandon, as far as the lack of personality, I just felt like the game felt overall generic in a lot of ways. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a terrible game. It's not like a horrible game that needs to be burnt or anything like that. But at the same time, I just couldn't shake the feeling that outside of the graphics, like you said, and I wouldn't even say the graphics specifically, it was the technical side of it was very impressive, but as far as the art direction goes, it felt like it was sort of Gears of War light, and I'm not sure if this was the case, but maybe you guys can confirm this or not. But when Sony put out that original CG, did they have that sort of same hardcore, very tough guy look to it, or did they make it more tougher looking after Gears of War? Do you see what I'm saying? What do you guys think about that?
I haven't watched it recently, but it looked very similar to what I remember. I was there when they played that CG clip the first time, and I remember being pretty blown away by it. And it does look really, really close to what was shown. I think it's the same kind of art and the same quality. So I do think they met their target there.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm talking specifically more about the style, you know what I mean? Where it seems like they almost, I don't know, I felt like they did sort of changed it a little bit up to try to match Gears of War, and it's sort of perfect in terms of this game because it seems like everything it's built from other parts of other games. The respawning and the way enemies appear, it feels right out of Halo. There wasn't anything original about this game at all, and that was sort of my problem with it. And for the PS3 guy who doesn't own any other system and has to have a shooter, this game is going to be it. And that's fine. But for someone who just wants I was bored with it as well, and that was sort of my conclusion that there's just too many familiar parts there, and I wanted something a little bit different to shake things up.
My take on it is a little bit different from you guys. I've not played through the entire single player campaign, but I did play 3-4 hours of it in one sitting, so I must have liked something about it because it held my interest for 3 or 4 hours. So my initial impression of the game is that it may be the most graphically impressive ugly game I've ever seen. It's the graphical quality is fantastic, and yet the world is hideously ugly. It's all just gray and brown and smoky, and Gears has the same problem. Gears is like a great looking game in terms of graphics. Gears 2 is great looking, yet everything in it is brown. I'm just like really bored of this dingy gray photorealism in video games. I don't want everything to be pastel, Easter bunny colors or anything like that. But Jesus Christ, there are other colors than brown and gray. And not every dystopian society has a complete absence of color in it. So,
no joke.
But my problems with the game were more. It does have that feeling of been there, done that. It feels very on rails. Yet, for as on rails as the experience is, sometimes it's easy to get lost in the architecture to the point where they had to put in the little arrow to guide you on to the next objective. I totally know that point you were talking about, Brad, with the tank, because I was on that bridge and wondering why I had to take it by myself instead of having any assistance.
It's ridiculous. It's stupid.
I don't want don't want the game to play itself for me, and I just push the win button. But at the same time, I didn't understand why my guys were basically just sitting there while I'm trying to wage war single-handedly. So, my biggest complaint about the game was one that you also brought up. The volume of it is so friggin' loud. I thought initially that it was, I played at my friend's house, and he has a very nice setup with like a sub that's as big as me and all these surround sound speakers and stuff, and he had it cranked. It's overwhelmingly loud at points. So I don't know about the stew of horror and the stew of war, but I felt almost deaf at the end. So very much a cool game, but not something like, I liked it, but it's not something like I'd be saying, oh, this is one of the greatest shooters of all time or something like that. It's just basically it's a shooter, and it's a good shooter, but it doesn't really do anything we haven't seen before. So
a lot of complaints about the controls. I'll give you a quote from our listener Vince. He says, I finished the game. I haven't been able to play it with the latest patch, but I still feel strongly about the analog sticks being borked. If only because if the developers were truly going for a realistic approach, the movement would be different depending on what weapon you were carrying at the time. Looking down the scope would be different as well. He says they could just come out and say, we don't want you to be precise, we want you to lumber through the game. Then I guess I'd have to accept that decision. You can get used to the controls, but you can get used to drinking watered-down beer, too. I would contest that last point, but what do you guys think about the controls? Is Vince right here?
He's right on the money. Yeah, absolutely.
That was something I actually had meant to say something about. My problem with the controls weren't so much during the movement of your character, but the aiming of the guns. For whatever reason, and I guess this is something with the PS3 controllers. There's like a little bit of a dead zone in those analog sticks for some reason, which makes trying to aim for the first hour I spent with the game a real pain in the ass, basically, because you are moving, and you're either moving too much or you're moving not enough. And no matter how much I messed with the sensitivity or anything like that, I could never get it to where it felt natural or precise. So I definitely feel like it's something you will get used to. It took me about an hour. After playing it for an hour, I was pretty much where I could line up my shots with no problem. But there's definitely something there that feels, I don't want to say it's broken or anything like that, because I don't think it is, but there's something in there that feels off, and all I can think of it is that there seems like there is a little bit of a dead zone in the analog sticks on that controller.
It's the dual shocks, man. It's the dual shock. It's not a first-person shooter controller.
Yeah, it may not be broken, but it ain't working. I mean, you may have gotten used to it after like an hour, but by the time I put the game aside, I still wasn't used to it. I mean, I was missing shots that I could get in my sleep on other systems. I couldn't. Like you said, I mean, I tweaked the sensitivity. I ramped it up, scaled it back down, practiced a little bit. It just never, ever, ever felt like it was working for me. And maybe it's the stick itself. It could be a mechanical issue. Maybe it's the way it was implemented in the game. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not an engineer, but the control never worked for me. And I mean, if you had watched me playing that game, you would think I was like a retard with one arm. I mean, it was ridiculous how hard it was for me to get a beat on some guys. I mean, I'd have the shotgun and I'd miss a guy that was like 2 feet virtually from me, and it was I didn't like it at all. I think the controls are a serious issue.
My first 45 minutes with the game were very humiliating, because I had my friend and his kids watching me play and miss easy shots, and it's like, I really don't suck this bad at first-person shooters. It's, but you sound like such a noob when you say, it's the controls, man. It's the control. I'm not using the control.
Yeah, I know. You can't really play that card too often.
You can't, yeah. It's like being in an MMO and saying, oh, it was lag. I lagged out every time you screw up. So, but yeah, there definitely is. I don't know if it's because I don't own a PS3, so I only play a PS3 when I go over to a friend's house, and, it's fairly regular, but I spend a lot more time with the 360 controller. But I think it's just a case of the 360 controller sticks seem really good for shooters to me, whereas the PS3 controller is much better for playing Street Fighter 4. So it's kind of a push, but each system has a controller that's good for something that's maybe not as good for another type of game.
Yeah. I actually have a funny related side story to the controls, and on Twitter I saw this blog post about how to snipe in Killzone, and it does this photograph by photograph shot of how you snipe somebody, and the first shot is you're holding down the L2, and you're clicking down on the thumbstick, and then on the third shot, which had me rolling on the floor laughing, a third hand appears out of nowhere to push the zoom button on the control pad, which is basically saying like it's impossible. Yeah.
That's actually interesting, because Killzone 2 has the distinction of being one of the only games I've ever played where I reset the buttons configuration like as soon as I started. Usually I just play with whatever the default setup is, but that game, the default setup just was not working for me at all. So you can make it more manageable, but yeah, that default setup trying to pull off those shots is a real pain.
Let me ask you, I've got one more quote here. This is from Jacob Harris. He says, "The reason I don't love the gameplay is that the cover system can be annoying, and that the guns have no satisfaction, and that grenades don't have a grenady feeling." Gentlemen, would you say the grenades are grenady?
The only reason... Sorry, let me just jump in there. The only reason why I sort of agree with that, with the grenade launcher, every time I shot a grenade, it sort of just would disappear, and I'd never see where it'd go or something like that.
Well, that's not terribly grenady to me.
I just find it funny that we talk about grenades not feeling like grenades, like we've all chucked a bunch of grenades in real life, so we have some basis of comparison for what's grenady and what isn't.
At least it made more sense than the Stew of War, dude. I mean,
it
I
did.
really doubt that guy has seen action.
I like both of those statements, but they both crack me up. So.
All right. Well,
I guess if I can just jump in for a second,
sure.
At the end of the day, for me, it's a good game. It's certainly worth playing, especially if you're only a PS3 owner. This is your big shooter. I don't think it's a Game of the Year contender for me by any stretch of the imagination, even this early in the year. It's a good shooter, but you don't. My other complaint was that I don't feel like I'm supposed to fight this war by myself, but I've got this partner who's always barking at me. So I don't really understand some of the design decisions in that regard. But it's a good game, but it's not like the end all be all of shooters.
Yeah, if you've got nothing else to play and the PS3 is your only system, I could understand why somebody would think it was okay, but I mean, honestly, it's got a lot of really wonky decisions, a lot of old school decisions that I don't agree with and that I don't think are particularly next gen. And aside from the graphics, I really don't think there's a lot going for this game whatsoever. I think a lot of people could skip this one and not miss out on anything.
Well, a call to arms to our listeners. If you think the multiplayer in Killzone 2 makes it worth a second look, please let us know. Stop by the GameCritics.com website and leave us a message. Coming up, we take a mulligan. Stay with us.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe, here in this great hall of justice, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled.
Welcome back, and I've got a question for our panel. Do you guys like Siskel and Ebert? Were you fans?
I love Siskel and Ebert.
Of course.
I was a fan of Siskel more than Ebert. I'm kind of pissed still. He's kind of a jackass these days.
Well, yeah. Well, Siskel has the easier road now because he passed on years ago, so we all look back at him as this sainted guy while Raj is still with us, and we probably don't like him as much because of that. But I like both guys.
But let's keep in mind that Roger Ebert had his throat removed and he can no longer speak. So we have to at least speak of him with some respect because he is suffering.
That's no excuse, man. No excuse. I don't care if his tongue swell up to the size of a fucking grapefruit. Do not care.
If not for Gene and Raj, I would not be the guy I am. So I owe them a lot.
I concur with that statement, and Game Critics would not have existed without Siskel passing away, actually, because he partly inspired me to start the site.
Now that is a story, unfortunately a story.
I thought you were going to say he left you some money.
Chi, I would love to hear that story someday about how Gene Siskel's death created Game Critics, because I think that would be an interesting sort of history lesson for me. But the reason I mentioned Siskel and Ebert is all the way back in 1992, you may remember Roger Ebert reviewed the movie Unforgiven, the Academy Award-winning Clint Eastwood Western. Now, when Roger Ebert reviewed that movie, do you know what he gave it? Do you know how many stars he gave Unforgiven, one of the greatest Westerns of all time? 2.5 stars. 2.5 stars. And Gene Siskel just looked at him like he was crazy, like he was nuts. And then years later, Roger Ebert went back and he re-reviewed Unforgiven. He gave it 4 stars. He added it to his list of the great movies, and he admitted he had no idea what he was talking about, that time and perspective had made him really understand what had been going on in Unforgiven.
What a bitch-ass punk.
Well,
That's all I got to say.
You may
but we
say
couldn't
that.
get him to go back and re-look at Lucio Fulci's The Beyond, which he hated, which is a great Italian horror flick that he should reconsider as well.
Well, there may still be a chance. His throat may be gone, but his eyes and ears are working well. So there's still hope. That was a horrible thing to say. But here's why I've gone down this long meandering road. We are going to now have the opportunity to Ebert it up. We are going to choose reviews from our pasts, and without fear of shame or derision, we're going to revise our score, either up or down, and then explain why. So, Mike, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. What review are we going to pull from your past?
Well, having done this for a lot of years now with movies and games, it for some reason I'm 99% of the time whenever I review something, that's how I feel about it, and that's how it's always going to be. But once in a while, when you write a lot of reviews, you start to second guess yourself. Maybe, you were in a weird frame of mind when you reviewed it or whatever. But sometimes I occasionally wonder if I got something wrong. So the review that bugs me the most at Game Critics of mine that I feel like I blew it is Aquaman Battle for Atlantis. A terrible, terrible game. And I wrote a fairly scathing review of this awful game, and I gave it a 3. And in retrospect, a 3 was way, way too high for this game. Aquaman is a terrible, terrible game where you play not Aquaman, who you remember from the Super Friends in his orange shirt with his clean-cut hairdo, but a buff-looking Greg Allman wannabe with long flowing mullet and a hook hand and no shirt. And all the cutscenes in the game aren't cutscenes at all, but are stills with comic book dialogue bubbles because they couldn't even afford to actually spend money on cutscenes. And the gameplay is swimming through the underwater world, beating guys up with the same combo that always reminds me of the review of, I think it was Kakuto Chojin for the Xbox that IGN did, where they actually said one of the guys was winning fights by just mashing the controller against his ass. You could totally win. You could totally win every fight in Aquaman by mashing the controller against your ass repeatedly. Some of these combos were like 12
Did
buttons.
you say your ass?
Yeah.
I just need clarification on that.
Yeah, my ass. Some of the combos in the game were like 12 button presses long. It's a horrible.
I was just going to say, just some advice for anybody going over to Mike's house to play games. Wear some gloves.
Wipe those controllers down first.
I do clean my controllers after mashing them against my ass. It's the polite thing to do.
I would hope so.
So Aquaman is a terrible, terrible game, and I gave it a 3. And I think the logic behind giving it a 3 at the time was that it was a game that was only $20, and it seemed like, well, at least they aren't gouging me for $50 for this piece of shit, and that deserves some credit, I guess. But in retrospect, it's a horrible, horrible game, and it totally deserved a 0.5 to a 1. I might go as high as a 1 because it's not a broken game, but it's an awful gameplay experience. When you're Aquaman and you can only summon a shark and a dolphin to aid you, there's just no fucking point to being Aquaman at all. So, terrible game. That I should have scored lower, and I apologize to anyone who went out and bought it because they thought, oh, he gave it a 3, so it must have some redeeming quality. It doesn't. It deserved a 1.
That's unlikely that happened anyway, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm interested in hearing if Chi or Brad have any games that they feel the same way, that maybe they scored too low and looking back on, or too high. So, Chi, what do you got?
Yep, sure, Mike. I've got Ready to Rumble Boxing, the old... I think the game debuted on the Dreamcast and had the Ready to Rumble from Michael Buffer fame. Do you guys remember that one?
Yeah, I totally played that game. I own it, actually.
Yeah, and I was just reading the review today, and I really saw that game through rose-colored glasses for whatever reason, and I gave it a 9 out of 10.
Oh my Lord.
And
wow.
Yeah. So let me explain why. Looking back at it, there's several reasons for that. One was when I first got the Dreamcast, I was showing it around to a few people, and the ones that stood out in my mind that I showed it out to was, one, my best friend, and two, my former boss. And the reason why was because they weren't particularly hardcore gamers, and when I showed them Ready to Rumble Boxing, they fell in love with it instantly. They laughed out loud at the characters, and it was sort of like they laughed at it like it was like a movie kind of a laugh, or they were watching something on TV, not that it was like a video game that had pixelated graphics or anything like that. So once I saw that reaction, I thought we finally had broken through some sort of barrier of not quite the uncanny valley, but some sort of barrier of being able to sort of just make people laugh without having any kind of gaming precepts or something like that. So, that was one reason why I really thought that was groundbreaking at the time. The other thing was...
So basically you thought Ready to Rumble was going to be the gateway gaming drug to get the mainstream masses into video games?
That's correct, yes. Based on... on these glowing responses that I got from, again, my former boss and my best friend, who, again, were not gamers, but we, they saw it, they just loved it, we all had a grand time playing it, and unfortunately that really colored my view, because even in my review, as I'm looking at it now, I'm saying some bizarre things like how I thought the combo system had depth in it, which I'm not sure what the hell I was thinking, quite honestly. The other factor I thought that played into it as well was there weren't a whole lot of good boxing games at the time, so I think that was another reason why I sort of gave it a really big pass. And this is before Victorious Boxers, this is before Fight Night, where they really have those two games have really redefined what boxing games are today. And looking back at Ready to Rumble Boxing, unfortunately, this is sort of a bit of an embarrassment on my part. But again, I do stand by the fact that it was really freaking funny, and I think I still enjoy it on that level. But probably, if I had to rate it over again, probably in the vicinity of a 7 or an 8, and I definitely would have toned down the whole, groundbreaking bit about it.
That's actually a good choice.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Chi. Brad, what about you?
Well, I guess I kind of am going to take a little bit of a different tack than Chi and Mike. Rather than a game that I thought I reviewed, too high or too low, one game that I really regret not reviewing is Fallout 3. I really love Fallout 3. It's one of my favorite games of the last few years, and it was kind of a behind the scenes. A number of things happened at the site, and for one reason or another, the planned review for it kind of fell through at the last minute, and it's an awesome game, and I think we should have a review of it, and I'm really kind of upset that I didn't get around to it. So rather than a do-over, I wish I would have just done a do. So that's all I had, I think.
Now, Brad.
I kind of have one in the back of my mind too that I haven't gotten around to doing as well, Brad. So we may have one on Game Critics somewhere down the road.
So,
okay.
So Brad, there's not a single review in your history that you wouldn't go back and revise at all? Because
Well, you know, it's funny. Go ahead. Bring it on, Tim.
I'm just saying, in preparation for the show, I went back and I actually read all of your reviews for all three of you, and so Brad, I took last week off of work to get through yours.
Well, all of them, really?
Yeah,
every single one.
And I came across a little review that you posted on July 31st, 2007 at 7:04 a.m. Do you recall what review that was?
Oh, you know, if that was July 31st, that means I was drinking Dancing Goat's coffee at 7:04. Yeah, that must have been Lost Planet. That was what it would have been. Yeah.
Lost Planet Extreme Condition, a game that you gave, I believe, let's look, an 8.5 out of 10. Now, I like a lot of this review.
Wow.
You say some interesting things here about the visuals in Lost Planet, that it's absolutely gorgeous and stunning. That the level design is good, and I won't debate you on that, but you've got a sentence here that just it knocked me out. It made me nauseous, and then it knocked me out. You say, quote, "Lost Planet is a sterling example of rock-solid control." Really? Really? Rock-solid control?
I think so.
This is a game.
What was your issue with the controls? Yep.
Well, this is a game where when you're not in the robot and you're just the guy and you're walking from one side of the level to the other, it looks like he has two legs, but he's moving with the speed of a guy with one leg. He's just kind of hobbling. And when you actually get in the robot, you actually move even slower. You get the jetpack and you can fly up and down, but I had the worst time controlling this game in and out of the mech suit. When this guy would fall down, there would be this, I believe it was like a 30-second animation that you had to watch of the guy falling down, brushing himself off, standing back up, and then proceeding. And then, of course, there was the hallmark of the, quote, rock-solid control, which was the battle against the giant green slug, where he will shoot little ice stalactites at you, and you'll get trapped in them, and then you can't move at all for the rest of the fight until your energy goes down and you perish. And it was at that point that I turned the game off, and I actually put it in my fireplace and melted it. So I'm wondering, rock-solid control, really? I mean, can you?
Well, you know, Tim, let me respond here, because you did bring up a good. No, they weren't good points, but I'll respond to them anyway. I do definitely agree that the fall down animation was probably the weakest thing out of the entire game. I mean, it was pretty ridiculous how long it took you to get back up after being knocked down. So that is absolutely correct. I'm with you on that. As for the rest, I don't know what to tell you, Tim. I mean, I didn't have a problem. I took that slug out pretty quickly. I think it was like my second try. I like the robots a lot. He ran a little slow maybe, but he's in waist-high snow, and I don't really move too fast in snow either, so I don't really have a problem with that. I don't know, Tim. This might be kind of an individual thing. I'm thinking. Maybe.
It didn't bother you.
Mike, you want to be the tiebreaker on this one?
I hated Lost Planet, so...
Oh, that's wonderful. My children just came down from upstairs. They're applauding. It didn't bother you that
I was going to ask if that was your kids. I thought that was your kids.
It was. When you shoot the little grappling hook thing and you miss or you disable it while you're in the middle of a pull, you can't fire the grappling hook again until you fall to the ground. And so you would frequently miss. You would shoot up 10 feet.
Well, how is that different from real life now?
In real life, if you're falling,
I'm grappling around. You can't fire a grappling hook after you've already fired it. You got to be on the ground. What are you talking about?
You know who could? The Bionic Commando. He could.
I don't know what grappling hook you're using.
The Bionic
Yeah, but
Commando
Bionic Commando is fake, dude. Come on. But I will say this. It's a control scheme that you kind of have to get used to. I mean, it's not something that you can immediately jump in and use with ease. I mean, it's definitely not as obtuse as something like Gun Valkyrie or something that really really makes you work hard. But I mean, maybe it's just a personal thing. Maybe I think it could be polished up a little bit, sure. But I think in my experience, I thought it was very solid. I didn't have any problems, and I thought it controlled really well. So I don't really know what to say except that I thought it worked for me.
I didn't play the game, so why don't we let Mike be the tiebreaker here? Mike, what did you think of the controls?
Well, I didn't play the game very far because I didn't really like the controls, but I just didn't like the game in general. So not one of my favorite games. So I'm probably not the person to decide this either.
But what did you think of the time you did play it? What did you think of the controls then?
I didn't quite hate them to the degree that Tim did, but I didn't like them either. But I hated the whole game, so like I said, I just didn't enjoy it. Apparently, there's something in me with giant mech games other than Zone of the Enders 2 that I'm just not into mechs. So if that means I have to turn in my critic card, okay, I'll hand it over. But I'm just not a mech guy.
I don't know about your critic card, but you may have to turn in your Chi Kong Lu friendship card.
I know. I'm sitting here in stunned silence.
If I rag on the Super Scope, if I rag on the Super Scope next, I'm out of game critics entirely, aren't I?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
All right. Well, I think we'll have to agree to disagree on this one, Brad. But anyone else on taking a mulligan? Anything else we'd like to rescore before we end the segment here?
Nope, I'm good.
No, I'm okay with everything other than Aquaman.
You'll never be okay with Aquaman.
Just out of curiosity, Mike.
Yes.
I just one thing that kind of stuck out in my mind. I mean, I don't really want you to relive the horror or anything, but was I correct in hearing you say that Aquaman could only summon a shark and a dolphin?
Yes. Yeah. His summoning powers always brought one of two things: a dolphin to aid him or a shark. And so the first time you see a shark come to aid him, it's pretty cool. And the dolphin was less cool, but still sort of interesting. And then when you consider that you have like 20 some levels times 30 times a level, so 600 more times you're going to see the shark and the dolphin, it really loses its cool factor.
Just out of curiosity, like what kind of sea creature would you have had? Like if you could talk to the developers and say, hey, let's redo this, but we're going to add some more sea life. Like what would you like?
Well, I was okay with the shark. Maybe some variety in sharks, not the same shark over and over and over. There's lots of cool things in the sea. Couldn't he have summoned some like electric eels once in a while, or an octopus, or whale, a killer whale? You should
have picked this game for your second chances.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's any point in ever returning to Aquaman. It's dead to me. Dead to me.
All right. Well, on that, we'll close out our Taking a Mulligan segment. When we come back, listener mail. Stay with us. For our final segment, just a couple of pieces of listener mail. This first comes to us from Frog of Death. Now, if you recall, last week we asked you to send your suggestions for failed game resurrections, sort of a second chance gaming. And Frog of Death sent us this one. He says, quote, "One game I would like to see receive a second chance is the classic Ninja Golf for the Atari. I like the golf sim aspects as much as was possible on the Atari, and the fact that you have to venture down the fairway to get your ball. All the while, you have to fend off rival ninjas and other creatures who don't want to see you under par. The greens are a little odd, facing dragons and not actually putting, but with a second chance that could be reworked. Reworked in 3D and with real golf physics, throw in a solid fighting engine and a quality course design, and I think you could have a real winner. Ninja Golf. And that's, he said for the Atari, that's an Atari 7800 game. Had any of you heard of Ninja Golf before?
Never.
Never had heard of it. But then a 7800 game, that could be why. I mean, by the time the 7800 came out, I wasn't really paying attention to Atari anymore.
Yeah. I don't think you can call. I don't think you can call any game on the 7800 a classic, actually.
But hearing him talk about it, it sounds sort of interesting in an odd way, like one of those weird, different kind of golf games that I would be interested in checking out. A remake of, not the original.
Yeah, the only thing that comes to mind for me was that Ribbit King game, but I never actually played it. Did any of you guys play that one?
Yeah, I played that.
Played some Ribbit King back in the day, which was kind of what it reminded me of too. But I think Ninja Golf sounds a little more involved than Ribbit King actually. So
sure.
Yeah, very true. Although Ribbit King was pretty good. So Frog, if you haven't played Ribbit King, check that out. It's certainly not Ninja Golf in any way, shape, or form, but it is good. And one other thing I would throw out also in the non-standard golf genre would be Kirby's Dream Course. That it took Kirby and his cast of characters. You played kind of a miniature golf, but Kirby could use different powers to alter the shots. He could turn into a fireball and knock other balls out of the way, or he could turn into a rock and make himself drop straight down in the hole if you overshot it. So it was kind of a cool golf game. Again, not ninjas, no ninjas in there, but still, considering that none of us knew anything about Ninja Golf, and it's probably in all likelihood never going to get a remake, you got to make do with what you got. So Ribbit King and Kirby's Dream Course, try that.
Good suggestions. Second email. This one comes from Anonymous. Well, he specifically asked that he remain anonymous. He says, Yoshinori, I pronounced it wrong, Yoshinori Yamagishi, I'm pretty sure that's right, the producer of Square Enix's Star Ocean series, recently said that he wanted to make erotic games. My question to you is this. How would you define an erotic game, and would you even want to play one? Anyone brave enough to take this question?
I'll jump on it. What the hell? How would I define an erotic game? I guess that's a game that has nudity and sex and that sort of thing in it, which is already something that exists in Japan that we don't get in America for whatever reason, probably because we're a country founded by Puritans. I don't really have any interest in playing erotic games, and it's not because I have anything against eroticism, as anyone who'd ever looked at my porn collection could probably tell you. I own that. I'm not ashamed to say. But for something about game sex is just not really interesting to me. Like, I don't have a problem when it's like Mass Effect, when there's a sex scene that's in the game, or God of War, where there's sex scenes in the game, but it's like a little tiny component of the game where it fits in with the story. But what I've seen of the Japanese erotic games, they just look so cheesy and stupid that I have no desire to play one.
I guess there would be a difference between an erotic game and a sex game. When I think of a sex game, I think of like Leisure Suit Larry, the first one.
Well, yeah. Now you're kind of splitting hairs, though.
Yeah.
An erotic game or a sex game. I think we, having played through 30-some hours of Star Ocean 4, I can tell you what he meant, because there's a little cat girl in Star Ocean 4 that makes me want to take a shower every time I see it, and it makes me afraid to open my door because she's so scantily dressed and underaged that I'm sure every time she comes on screen, the cops are outside my house waiting to arrest me as some sort of pedophile. So if what this guy's idea of erotic is, as far as Star Ocean 4 shows us, I have no desire to see any kind of erotic or sex game he wants to make. So,
well, I would kind of agree with that. I mean, nothing against Japan or Japanese people or Japanese culture, but a lot of the quote-unquote erotic stuff I've seen from Japan is pretty just,
It's
I
lame.
can't even. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I don't even know how to categorize it. It's just out there in its own area, and it's not anything near what I would remotely consider to be erotic. I mean, I think the concept is kind of a good one, but again, it depends on what you're going to do with it. I mean, personally, I think that's a whole aspect of game design that developers haven't even touched. I mean, imagine if you took something like a Leisure Suit Larry, which was really successful in all the years that it ran, and instead of playing it just for laughs, or even, I guess it could even be a comedy, but just make it more sophisticated, make the game about the relationships and about the interconnectedness of people. I mean, imagine maybe a Mass Effect where the point of it was just, not necessarily hooking up with somebody, but, having a relationship or going through that whole dating aspect. I mean, I think there's some potential there. I'd be interested in it. I mean, it's not something I'm really hungering for. I mean, I don't think there's a real need out there for it. But if somebody tackled it with some maturity and some taste, or if barring those two things, at least a really, really good sense of humor, I'd be up for it. I mean, I'd be cool with that.
I don't know if I would be, and the funny thing about that is because I live a life where I'm about to be divorced for a second time. I don't want to play through relationships in video games.
So maybe you're not the target audience, man.
I might not be the target audience for that particular genre of gaming.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the Japanese idea or one man's idea of erotic games, unfortunately, I'm thinking about the game that's been making a lot of headlines right now, Rapeplay. That's a PC game where the whole point of the game is to try to like rape these women on a train or something like that, and it's been getting all kinds of headlines and all kinds of negative stuff. And I just hate to see the government, and imagine if this game was actually made for as a North American game. I mean, the government people would just rip this thing to shreds, and we'd be in a really bad place from a content standpoint. I do think I would like to see more sex explored as a topic in video games, like the way Mass Effect did it, and we're certainly not seeing that often enough. We're sort of seeing more just sort of like these creepy things pop up, like sort of the way Mike was talking about with Star Ocean, and I recently had something similar as well in Onechan Bara, where it's a zombie killing game with two girls in ridiculous outfits, and one of the girls is a underage girl in a schoolgirl outfit. Unfortunately, there's also you can customize the outfits, and by default they all sort of just wear bikinis, until you can actually unlock more costumes. So, this character, if you just sort of picked her name is Saki, yeah, you could have her walk around 13-year-old in a bikini, and that was like, oh, that didn't feel good at all. I stayed away from that. It was already bad enough. Like I already wouldn't want to play this in front of my wife in general, let alone let her see that.
When I was playing that game tonight, I was at that same screen that you're talking about, and the funny thing was I was sitting there thinking, what's worse, that I'm sitting here trying to play dress up, or that I'm looking at a underage pixel girl in her undergarments? So it was like a low point in my life, basically.
Some of that Japanese stuff is really weird and it's really questionable to Western sensibilities. But I mean, I don't really want to get into a cultural discussion about that. I mean, I think in general, outside of that stuff, sex is really, I think most of it is just kind of tasteless and not really well done in games. I mean, I think it's, it's kind of sad commentary when there's so few good examples of sexual content. I mean, although to be fair, I think that's probably true for a lot of media right now. It's kind of weird that in this country, it's way more acceptable to show somebody getting their brains blown out than it is to show somebody sharing a really romantic moment together. God forbid you start talking about stuff like same-sex relationships or, things like that. So,
but I think we could agree that video games in particular is really behind the curve on that. At least. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're stuck in a rut for sure.
John Landis had a great quote about that, about movies, and he said it's a PG-13 if you blow someone's brains out or chop someone's head off, but it's an R if you show a boob. So that kind of sums up the American viewpoint when it comes to sex and violence. But I mean, the rape lay is a funny example because from everything I've read about it, it has this distasteful premise, but then it doesn't really follow through on it, which is kind of interesting because the Japanese have, a series of movies about a guy called Rape Man that are comedies, and this is the country that gave us tentacle porn and everything. So it's a weird cultural thing. So, but it's exactly right that if something like that came out here, the government would have a field day with it. I mean, if you think Hot Coffee and Grand Theft Auto is bad, wait till you have some game where your objective is to like feel up chicks on the subway. That'll just never fly.
I mean, that was like a hidden minigame about two people having consensual sex, and it was like normal sex,
Yeah.
We have something that's like rape or tentacles or age or any combination of the three. I mean, the games industry would be sunk in this country.
But yet at the same time, right? We had the Mass Effect guy. I think it was Ray Mazuka, was it, or something?
Yeah.
He proclaimed like Mass Effect was going to end the games as art debate, right? And I think largely it had to do with the fact that they were going to have this tastefully done sex scene, and it's sort of like that last barrier that video games, one of the last barriers that video games has to cross before it's like truly, I don't know whether it's mainstream media or whether it's just sort of a accepted art form or something like that, right? I mean, so do we want to actually have more sex games? Probably not, but at the same time, I think I don't know if you guys could disagree with me on this one or not, but I think certainly for games to evolve and to grow, it needs to start dealing with this topic a little more beyond the Leisure Suit Larrys and the Onechan Baros that we have out there. What do you think about that?
I agree completely with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, I even expanding on that though, I mean, I think it's larger than just the sex. I think what we need is more game developers approaching games with a truly mature attitude, where within that context, sex can be addressed in a really straightforward and significant way. I mean, we need to kind of leave the giant, triple D breast sizes behind, and I mean, that stuff has its place, but it can't be the standard.
Then you're going to have to get a whole new group of game developers, because look at who is drawn to becoming a game developer. They're young guys who are into the stereotypical computer stuff like that, who can't get dates, and that stuff isn't all true. I mean, there are lots of guys who work in that field who are married and everything, but when you look at the games that come out of developers in America and Japan, you have to think that some of these guys are sort of immature. I mean,
pretty lonely.
Yeah. I mean, and I hate to say that because I love games and I love being part of the gaming universe and everything like that, and far be it for me to bag on guys who are doing something in a field I love, but at the same time, you can certainly make a case for a lot of the guys who are making games right now. Just the maturity level is not there. I mean, it's not like film where you have Judd Apatow making sex comedies, but you also have David Lynch making artsy movies, or Takeshi Kitano, or you have all these different age groups and voices represented. Gaming is kind of dominated by this one sort of demographic when it comes to making the product, which is why we get 10,000 games with girls with huge boobs that are unrealistic and about guns with chainsaws on them and stuff. Right. So
no, I totally agree. I mean, we definitely need to expand the number of developers out there. I mean, I think it's okay to have that stuff, and I enjoy it once in a while. I mean, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I want to play games where stuff like BioWare stuff, or even Indigo Prophecy, where that stuff is more the norm than it is the exception.
Would the game that's come closest be The Sims?
Ugh.
I don't even know how to answer that.
Yeah, I hate talking about The Sims, so.
I do. Well, I mean, is there another game that allows you to take a relationship from the moment you meet somebody to dating, to falling in love, to making babies, to growing old and dying? I mean, isn't that the full cycle of love and emotion right there? And it's one of the best-selling games of all time. It's possible, right?
The operative word about The Sims is that it's exactly what it is. It's a sim. It's all those things that you just said, but sort of that's it. It's all just simulated. So it's a tough call, and I think certainly it is very open to your interpretation, and that's why a lot of people gravitate toward that game. But I'm not sure if it's sort of making any kind of it's a sandbox element. It's not so much like making sort of an artistic statement or any kind of expression.
Well, it lets the player,
about the subject.
It lets the player make their own artistic statement, doesn't it? I mean, it's basically you are creating your own story for these characters who are falling in love. Isn't that stronger than having somebody tell the story to us?
Right, and I agree up to the point where they actually do it, and it's like a bunch of pixelated blocks, and not really any kind of not visually engaging, I guess.
Sure, but
you likes it a little juicier, as you can tell.
Well, I mean, it's not even that. Sorry, let me stop you. It's not even that. It's not like I'm trying to get off on this thing. I mean, it's literally like symbolic, so they're almost treating with kid gloves, you know what I mean? Like they're not really dealing with what does it mean to, I guess it does deal with certain parts as far as, there's going to be, if you have sex, you're going to have kids, that part of it, but it's not dealing with on a more emotional level, or at least it didn't deal with it in The Sims 1. I haven't played, Sims 2 or 3, if they're not even up to 3 yet, right? I haven't played Sims 2. But I'm not sure if there's like, jealousy involved, and
absolutely there is.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of discussing more of like the artistic directorial decisions, the more of the kind of structured narrative. I mean, I think we're kind of looking. I mean, the sandbox thing is kind of a unique situation. So, I haven't played The Sims very much, and if that's the case, I mean, I think that's great. But at the same time, I think we're talking about the attitude of developers, where they are crafting an experience that they want the player to go through, and so far, the majority of those crafted experiences has been pretty juvenile. So, I mean, sandboxes are one thing, but when you're having a director or a producer give you something that they want you to experience in a certain way, we kind of want them to up their game a little bit.
Was there ever a game in any of you guys' mind that sort of had it at least in a somewhat good direction?
In terms of relationships?
Or just in the whole eroticism and sex in general?
Mike, what do you think?
No, not really. Dead or Alive, Extreme Beach Volleyball. No.
I would say that BioWare is probably on the right track. I really like what they're doing, and I really like the choices and the attitude that they've taken towards it. I mean, number one, none of those romantic side quests in any of their games are required, so you can completely skip them. And most of the time, it takes quite a bit of effort to actually get into those and to get them to happen. So. And when they do happen, I mean, it's usually pretty quick, but it's kind of a nod, and it's acknowledgement of what you've done and that you've taken the time to kind of generate that relationship with that person. So to me, they've really done, I think, the best. I think Indigo Prophecy was a good example. It wasn't necessarily as open-ended as what BioWare did, but their handling of it was pretty good. I really admired what they did there. There's been a couple other things. Actually, Fear Effect 2 and Fear Effect 1, both of those. The content, even though the advertising and the perception of those games was really gutter trash, when you actually played the games, they were really well done and really sophisticated. And I was always really upset that the PR agencies really sold those games as less than what they were. I had a lot of respect for those games.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one game I wanted to bring up, and that was I didn't play the original Fallout 1, but I did play the Fallout 2. And I just liked the way that game sex was sort of this prevailing element in it, and they didn't sort of like say, "Hey, look at us, we're doing sex," And what I mean by it was sort of there in terms of it was always sort of an option in the dialogue. There was clearly prostitution littered throughout the game, so I thought that was a really interesting take on it as well, as far as I was concerned. And I was actually kind of disappointed actually that in Fallout 3. It felt like they really tried to sidestep that, like they didn't want to go there. And even with the one prostitute in the whole game, all she does is lie in bed next to you, and I thought that was really disappointing.
Well, they really sleazed it up in Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, that's for sure. Well, that was some really lame eroticism in that game. So
how was that? I kind of what you're talking about.
it was a terrible hack and slash, and like in the first town there's a prostitute and you have all these conversation trees with her, and it's just juvenile, basically. One of those games, again, that you would be embarrassed if somebody was sitting on the couch reading the dialogue alongside of you, so
Right.
not good.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, let's wrap this up. You know what I think we need in this conversation is a female voice. We need a female perspective. And I was going to go wake up my wife, but she's 8.5 months pregnant, and I'm not sure she'd appreciate it. So we may revisit this in a future episode, but we're going to wrap up episode 13 right now. Gentlemen, thanks as always for joining me.
Pleasure as always, Tim.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So true.
All right. Good. I want to remind listeners that you can subscribe to the podcast through the iTunes Music Store or the Zune Marketplace. You can listen live on the Game Critics homepage as well. So for all of us here at the podcast, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.